Uh, well, we turn again to Master Keizan's Zazen Yojinki, things to take to heart about Zazen, written many centuries ago, but alive with us today. I'm just back, as I think most folks know, from a conference on Buddhism, technology, and the future in Taiwan, where I gave a speech that will change the world. I felt the earthquake as I was speaking, quite literally, but I think it was just one of those Taiwan earthquakes. And today we're talking about something from long ago, and both are true in the present. And I like to say that sometimes people say, Jundo, you talk too much about the future. And then I actually get folks who say, Jundo, this Zen stuff is too much in the past. Here we are with Master Keizan, who's been ashes for centuries, long ago. But it all comes alive right now in the choices we make and how we live. So these words of Master Keizan are alive in every word, thought, and act with us today, and how we sit Zazen today. And I like to think that the things of tomorrow also will contain Master Keizan too. You see, the future is just the past tomorrow, and the past is just today, back then, like that. So in this section, like last time, Master Keizan is telling us what Zazen is by telling us what it's not. And we'll see that again, when a Zen fellow says it's not this, he might also mean, well, it is too. You know, I like to say that these Zen folks are always talking out of both sides of their no-sided mouth. And we'll see some cases of that today. And there's also aspects of this, like the famous Indian teaching. I believe it's neti neti, not this, not that. The what is it? The oh my gosh, I'm having a senior moment. When you describe truth by saying what it's not, something like that. So why would Master Keizan do this? Well, Zen is really putting down divisions and judgments, you see. That's what I tell you every time you ask about practice. Put down the judgments, put down the divisions of mind, put down the categories. And yet, I always put an extra and yet there just to underline it. And yet, of course, we live in a world of judgments, me and you, categories, good and bad, trucks that are driving in my driveway. I have to see what this is. 1 second. Sumimasen. Hi. Wonderful delivery. Hi, arigatou gozaimasu. Sumimasen. Domo. Package delivery right to our Zazenkai. See how that works? So we have to live in a world of packages which are delivered, and people who send them, and people who receive them, and divisions, and good things and bad things. So our practice is largely about how that all fits together. It's good advice, unique advice, precious advice, a treasure of advice for how to live this life. Why? Well, most of us are caught in the world of only the division and the judgments and the good and bad. Very simple. Very simple. That's called ignorance in Buddhism. Most of us live in the world of only divisions, good and bad, and that's ignorance. Fearing our sickness, fearing our death, fearing loss, bankruptcy, the leaving of people we love, sadness, resentment, hate, all of that. That's all the world of ignorance. So the medicine that Buddhism prescribes is, of course, to put all that down and to encounter the world another way. Also a perfectly valid way to encounter life. It says, I like to say that we're replacing one mental model of how the world is with another through our practice. And this is the model without the divisions. That's kind of whole and complete as it is, where there can be no resistance, no loss, no coming or going, thus no death. That's how whole it is. And that is the medicine for all that suffering and ignorance. But we cannot just live that way either. So our practice is to figure out how the two come together. Basically, I like to say, Zen people can't seem to get it so easily, but it's not rocket science. It really isn't. So we're going to see that again in Master Keizan's words. Last time, if you want to tune into the last episode, which Bjorn has so kindly turned into a podcast for us. Give me a wave, Bjorn. You can hear okay? Okay. All right. We talked about Zazen is not based upon teaching, practice, or realization, which may come to as a surprise to many of you, because here we are teaching. I'm teaching, and we were practicing, and we're trying to have a realization, and we saw that the teaching is a non-teaching, the practice is a non-practice, and the realization is not something that can be realized. Well, Master Keizan continues today. Zazen is also not based upon discipline, practice, or wisdom. These three are all contained within it. Now, first off, notice that practice appeared twice, last month and this month, and I meant to check to see if it's actually a different kanji that was used, and I didn't get around to checking it. So I am a little curious why he mentions practice twice, but anyway, we have practice again this month, and I will get back into my research on that right after our Zazenkai. And you would think that we study the precepts, so there must be something about this discipline, and we are seeking a certain wisdom. So what does he mean? Zazen is not based on these things, yet all three are contained within it. So first we turn to discipline, sorry. And there are actually two translations here I provided, but they're very close this time. And I kind of just did it because, number one, I liked it. Number two, just to show you that sometimes the translators actually agree. It's not, there's no real debate here on what Master Keizan was saying. So even though this is being translated from long, long ago into our modern English language, it really is pretty clear. Now, discipline is usually understood, says Master Keizan, as ceasing wrong action and eliminating evil. But in Zazen, the whole thing is known to be non-dual, which can be taken to mean that we drop all thought of wrong and right, good and evil. Well, that doesn't sound right. As a matter of fact, some people say that when Buddhists go into that kind of amoral thinking, that there is no right and wrong, you can do anything. Why not kill? Why not steal? Some people say that before World War II, the Japanese military was supported by some Buddhist skills that went a little too far with that. That said, for example, well, there's nobody really being killed, so go have your war. It's okay. That's not true. Also, just a little footnote. Sometimes it just happened this week again. There's a book called Zen at War by a very, shall we say, a former, maybe he still technically is Soto Zen priest named Brian Victoria, who kind of got on his high horse and for own ideological reasons wrote a book about that pre-World War II time, which is partially true, but also really Mr. Victoria's mistranslations, exaggerations. He's kind of very far on the left, and he, for ideological reasons, he really twisted facts. He really mischaracterized some people who, like Kodo Sawaki, Nishijima's first teacher, who were kind of against war. Kodo Sawaki had seen war. I'm way off, I'm getting off topic. This is a footnote. Kodo Sawaki had seen war. He was drafted, was a young man before he was a monk. He went to, I think, the Russian-Japanese War, and it was bloody and terrible. And he wrote about how bloody and terrible and stupid war is. And then when World War II began to happen, he kind of resigned himself to it and spoke in ways like I would speak about, like the war in Afghanistan, which I can't stop. It's wrong. I'm sorry this is happening. And or the situation in Gaza, for example. It's wrong. I'm sorry this is happening. I can't stop it. I hope for the best. May all be safe. And Brian Victoria took his words and completely twisted them. For example, in one section he said, I'm sick, something like, I'm sick to my stomach with violence. And he said, we've had our fill ourselves, let's fill ourselves with violence. You know, and it's just what he did there was a real casting mud on people who should not have. D.T. Suzuki, same thing. Brian Victoria went against D.T. Suzuki, who was kind of a naive fellow who had no idea what was going on in Germany, no idea what was going on in China, was getting propaganda from the news. But Victoria writes this book, Zen at War, and makes it sound like, you know, D.T. Suzuki, some kind of like rabid nationalist. It's just not true. End of footnote. Getting back to our main talk. If you listen here, it sounds like discipline is usually understood as ceasing wrong action and eliminating evil. In Zazen, the whole thing is known to be non-dual. That does not mean that we are beyond right and wrong. Of course, we study the precepts and we see certain basic things. To be free of anger, hate, jealousy, violence is good. It's good for any number of reasons. It frees our mind. It's hard to practice Zen if you're filled with anger, resentments, hate, jealousies, and also makes the world around you a little better. If you live in a monastery, you don't want to live with other people filled with hate and violence, of course, but if you live in a country, neither do you want to live in a country that's filled with people who are violent and hateful. Our way is very much about putting down the violence and hate. Actually, that was what my speech was about in Taiwan as well. Always has been and always will be. So what does he mean that we put down the belief in evil, it's all non-dual? When we're sitting, we experience the realm beyond small human judgments of good and bad, small human judgments of enemy and friend, small human judgments of right and wrong. And what manifests at such point is not, shall we say, a blank amoral void, but something I might describe as the big universal good, right, and whole. There's something underlying this. All the small worldly, earthly violence, war and peace, all the earthly sickness and health, there's something underlying this that's not just a blank, empty bag, but a fullness, a wholeness, a beauty. The of the cosmos, whatever you want to call it, there's something good with a big G that is discovered when we put down our small human right and wrong. And definitely in our practice, we want to do right, not kill is right, as best we can, avoid the taking of life. But in Zazen, you put it down to experience the big right. Right? You got it? Okay? So this is not a practice of amorality. It's a practice of kind of non-duality, where we find also that this world in which we live of war and peace and disease and sickness and health and poverty and riches and up and down is also somehow the other face of this big right. That's non-duality. Not unique to Zen at all. Found in Taoism, found in many Indian teachings, Hinduism, found in many other kind of transcendent teachings. I'm very much into Spinoza. We share a birthday, by the way. Spinoza also somehow felt this in Western philosophy, this kind of transcendent wholeness that takes up all the broken pieces. Okay, I've already spent half the talk and I'm not even past the first sentence. He says, while sitting, cast off the numberless concerns and rest free from it. We okay, Bjorn? Give me a wave. Okay. Cast off the numberless concerns and rest free from entangling yourself in either the Buddhist way or the worldly way. We really drop all divisions. There's the world outside of money and power and winning and greed and sex and all this entertainment. And then the Buddhist way, we think of serious practice and lighting incense and chanting and bowing and making beads. Forget all that, just sit. And then you get the real Buddhist teaching, which somehow holds all that. Holds all that. And then when you realize that this Buddhist truth that is all that, this funny thing happens. Coming back to the world of Buddhist practice, you find another face to bowing and another face to lighting incense and another face to chanting. And coming out to the world of money and power and rich and poor, that also looks different too. It's still there, but they're tasted a different way. Yeah, just to give you a little hint, for example, you may bow and you think, I'm bowing to Buddha, the statue on the up there. I'm bowing, Buddha, help me, Buddha, help me. And then when you have this taste of wholeness, it's, maybe I could describe it as, oh, now the world is bowing to the world. Buddha is bowing to Buddha. The whole world is bowing to each other. Something like that. See? And this world of sickness and health and money and all that, we still have to live there, but let's keep it within reason and not become its prisoner too. So you see, in Zazen, we cast off both the Buddha way and the worldly way to truly discover what is the Buddha way and the worldly way. Leave behind feelings about the past as well as your usual sentiments. When you leave behind all opposites, what can obstruct you? This is the formless discipline of the ground of mind, the mind ground. It's a complete freedom. The alternate translation says, not concerned with the Buddhist way or the worldly way, forgetting feelings about the past as well as mundane feelings, no affirmation or denial, no good or bad, what is there to prevent or stop? And you find all things are as they are. There's nothing to prevent or stop. We had someone ask about feeling resistance. And I said, it's like a river sometimes, you know? We discover that this universe is like this great flowing river. And we suddenly popped up in it. Oh my gosh, here we are swimming in the river for 70, 80 years, I hope, something like that. Swim in here. And what we try to do is we try to swim in good direction. I want to go over there. I'm going to swim over there. Okay. And oh, there's some rocks. Want to avoid those rocks. Oh, it wants to pull me under here. There's a big wave. Whoop. Try to stay up afloat. Okay, this is life, you know, we're trying to get through, man. Just trying to get through here on the river of life. And then we get mad at the damn rock. Bumped into that rock there, darn rock. That other guy over there, hey, you're swimming in my area. Go over there. You know, I want to swim more towards this thing. I like it. I'll swim away from the big fish that's over there. You know, this is life. Try to get through. Then we practice Buddhism. And we discover two things. Number one, we discover sometimes when the swimming gets to be too much, just cast out your arms and let the river take you where you will. It's going to do that anyway. Just cast out your arms and let the river take you where it will. For example, let's say you have a disease that cannot be cured. When I was in the hospital, before my surgery, you feel kind of helpless. Because, of course, it all turned out good, happy ending. I'm glad. See, I avoided the rocks one more time. Still swimming here for a little while. There was a big rock, man. I was crashing into it. And thanks to Dr. Akashi and the surgical team, I got through. But the night before, I just cast out my arms and really felt it. Take me where you will. If you're going to take me under, pull me under, it's fine. And if I'm going to float a little more here, let me float. And there was total peace. Boom. I was no longer afraid of death. There was another reason too. The other thing that Buddhists discover, we are the river. We are the river. We're not just like swimmers fighting the river. We've sprung up in the river because we are the great flowing. And so when you think you're going to get pulled under, it's just the river returning to the river, my friend. So we are the rocks and the trees and the shore and the big fish over there too. But they're also the river, you see, like that. Now, what is that river? Let's just leave it there. Now, going on, what about practice? Practice usually means unbroken concentration. People think that Buddhism, you're supposed to concentrate and control the mind. Focus the mind. Get past all the divisions of this world and concentrate, and just focus. And our Shikataza way is kind of like concentrating without trying so hard. Zazen is dropping the body-mind, not so much concentrating the body-mind, but I like to say there's a lovely English expression, paying it no never mind, not getting tangled in it. The body-mind has its desires and judgments. We just let them blow away, and we're free of the body-mind. Some people think that means go into deep concentration and get past this body. That's like a Hindu belief, some kinds of meditation. Deep concentration. We must escape this body. That is not the meaning, I believe, of dropping body-mind. Dropping body-mind just means put it down, man. Just you hold in great grocery bags, put them down for a while. Put the burden of this body, put the hungers of this mind down. Just put it down and rest. Rest, easy. There's people in India who do these yoga practices where they keep their arm up in the air for 20 years. I've seen these guys. They're real. It must be hard the first 3 weeks. After the first 3 weeks, I think they don't feel a damn thing because they're just completely numb there or something. But it's like, so their way to get rid of the grocery bags is just to hold them in the air for 20 years. And then I'm free of them. Okay, that's not our way. Just don't be tangled in it. Don't be bothered by the grocery bags of judgments in life. So practice usually means unbroken concentration. But Zazen is dropping the mind, body-mind, leaving behind the confusion and intellectual understanding. It's unshakable, without activity. It is not diluted, it's clear, but it's still like an idiot or fool. There's something playful about it. It really is, how to say, you know the expression, prancing through life without a care in the world, like that. Acting like a fool, and who gives a darn? Let life do what it does. We're just a fool. Like a mountain, like an ocean. They don't have to do anything. The mountain just rests as the mountain. The ocean just flows as the ocean. Yet without any trace of motion or stillness. Hard to explain, but somehow even the mountain is flowing, the ocean is still, and we're somehow beyond all ideas of passing time or frozen time. It's just very free and open without judgment or barriers. Even time doesn't apply there. So this practice is no practice because it has no object to practice. And so it's called great practice. We sit Zazen beyond any object to attain, any goal, beyond thoughts of right or wrong. Is this right or wrong? Beyond thoughts, am I sitting still or am I in motion? You know, the blood is still flowing through you, and the breath is coming in and out. You actually are in motion, but you're sitting there still. Are you in still or you're in motion? No, you're sitting Zazen beyond all ideas of these opposites. And it's somehow whole and free, and you're sitting there like a fool. Wisdom is usually understood to be clear discernment, to really understand something. In Zazen, all knowledge vanishes of itself. Mind and discrimination are forgotten forever. I think he means that, you know, our judgments about thinking we know things just falls away in Zazen. And what appears there is not ignorance or nothing again. It's a kind of the great wisdom, the great clarity. The great clarity comes from dropping all the attempts to understand. Right now, for example, in our priest group, we're discussing some doctrine points you'll hear about in a few days. I'll explain later. I'm probably ordaining an AI system. Long story, you're going to hear about it. There's an explanation to it. Don't jump to any conclusions yet. I'm going to explain why I'm doing it, but I will probably be ordaining an AI system created by a Buddhist developer in Hong Kong. So we're having kind of a doctrinal debate about what that means among the priests. We have an attempt to understand something. What does this mean? Is this the right thing to do? What's the significance of this? What is an AI system? Is this a traditional idea of a priest? We're arguing all these things. Not arguing, but having a nice, you know, intellectual back and forth debate to try to understand this. And at a certain time, you put that down and there's clarity. That's all I can say. So there are times we have to understand things with wisdom or intellectual knowledge, and times to just understand things with a certain clarity. So wisdom is usually understood to be clear understanding, clear discernment. In Zazen, all knowledge vanishes of itself. Mind and discrimination are forgotten forever. The wisdom eye of this body has no discrimination, but is clear seeing of the essence of awakening. You see, there is clear seeing here when you drop the intellectual attempts at understanding. From the beginning, it is free of confusion. cuts from the beginning, it cuts off concept. And open and clear luminosity pervades everywhere. This wisdom is no wisdom because it is traceless wisdom, and thus it is called wisdom. There's a certain freedom that comes from dropping all debate, right and wrong, win and lose, me and you, left and right. And then we have to figure out how that fits in this world where we have left and right and wrong, ways to do things, right? But in Zazen, we drop that away. Now and again, as he said, it's not a deep concentration. Shikantaza is kind of a playful putting it down. A playful sitting there light, free, and easy more than in a deep concentrated state. Okay, last paragraph. The teaching that the Buddhas have presented all throughout their lifetimes are just this discipline, practice, and wisdom. In Zazen, there is no discipline that is not maintained. You know, we were sitting there, first off, how much trouble can you get in sitting there? I guess you could think, you know, things, evil thought, but really you can't get in too much trouble just sitting there, but that's not what it means. When you're sitting in Zazen, beyond right and wrong, it's automatically the great right. You see, so all discipline is maintained. You cannot steal in Zazen for two reasons. Number one, while you're sitting there, hard to, unless you can reach over the guy's wallet sitting next to you, grab that. You can't really steal much while you're sitting in Zazen, but that's not the reason we say that all discipline is maintained in Zazen. Sitting in Zazen, there's nothing to steal. There's no thief and nothing to be taken. It's so whole and complete, nothing lacking. You cannot steal. You cannot kill in Zazen, not only because while you're sitting there, unless you have a gun strapped to your holster, like Texas Shinchi up there, unless you have a gun, no one to kill during Zazen, so you're not breaking any precepts, right? But that's not the only reason that you cannot break a precept about killing in Zazen. It's because in Zazen, there's no birth or death, nobody to kill and nobody to be killed. That's how whole it is, like that. Conquering the demons of confusion, attaining the way, turning the wheel of the Dharma, and returning to tracelessness. You know, like birds fly through the sky, they leave no trace, no visions. All arise from the power of this. We'll close with something interesting. Supernormal powers and inconceivable activities. All of these are present in Zazen. Just a little footnote on that. You know, when I went to, I heard a comment this week, oh, you know, Jundo, you're always talking about the future. That's so weird, all that weird stuff. And I say, have you looked at Buddhism? Buddhism is like 2,500 years of weirdness, okay? Like me talking about robots is like the least weird thing that ever happened in Buddhism, you know? Because we got 2,500 years of magic and inconceivable powers and bodhisattvas who live in other realms and soothsaying and literally exorcisms and supernatural powers. Okay? So first off, I just want to say that. Okay? Robots is the right way down the list of weirdness in Buddhism. But let's talk about supernatural powers for a second. This is very interesting and worth a moment. I've given some talks on this before. This was always a head scratcher for Master Dogen and dozens of other old-time Zen masters. Supposedly, when you're an advanced adept or master, you're supposed to have all these supernatural powers. And they mean like, you know, ESP. The ability to read minds, to see the future. You're supposed to have all these supernatural powers to move objects, whatever it is, levitate. And I made a video of this once. It was really funny. I said, it was about this same topic. And I was sitting on a seesaw in the park, and I had my kids get behind me, and the camera was in front. It looked just like I levitated off the ground, I'm telling you. I said, "Here, oh, you want to see my powers? Here." And the kids pushed, and I went up, and you couldn't see the seesaw. It was brilliant. So anyway, Master Dogen and all the other Zen masters, people would come to them every once in a while and go, "Hey, Zen master, okay, let's see it." And they say, "What?" "All right, let me see you levitate." Something like that. Read my mind. Okay, so there's a wonderful scholar's article on this, if I could find it, but he said that the Zen masters came up with two or three different ways to answer that. Number one is the big, I could do it, but I don't want to show you. I like that one. I could do it, but I'm not about that. If a guy ever tells you that, yeah, I can levitate, but I don't want to show you, just write me a check, find another religious practitioner, I think, another guru. That was one response. The other response was, yeah, they could do that in the past. We can't do that now. That was a good one. But Master Dogen and some of the other Zen masters came up with things like, oh, yeah, I could do that. Here, would you like to see the real magic power? Drinking tea. My camera's not on, I noticed, so you missed that. Oh, there, is it coming? No, I had it for a second. Here's my magic power. I can make myself appear. Now I can make myself disappear. I'm playing with the camera for those in the podcast who don't know what I'm doing here. I've appeared again. So Master Dogen, the real one is drinking tea, being alive to breathe, to walk the earth, to scratch your nose. These are the true magic powers. That's the one I like. That's the response. Can you see the hearts of men? Can you read minds? Yes, in a sense. We Zen folks have a good handle on the ignorance and wisdom in people's hearts. We understand the minds of men. Can you see the future? Yes. How? Timelessly. I'm not talking about my robots again. I mean timeless. I can feel the timeless that is the future and the past. I like to say, I don't predict the future, I predict the past. It's much more reliable. But more than that, we can sense something timeless beyond past and future. But anyway, when we're sitting Zazen, again, Zazen itself is magical and sweeps in all concerns about time, about anyone else's mind to read. There is no other mind to read. There is no place to levitate to. There is no up and down like that. So in Zazen, there are all the supernatural powers and inconceivable activities. Emanating light and expounding the teaching is all in Zazen. All the great magic described in the sutras, like the Lotus Sutra, where people try to say how fantastic these teachings are by really painting fantastic Star Wars like stories about what we're doing here, like the Force and the Jedi. We have all that, right? All that is contained in the magic of sitting a moment of Zazen. All those present in this Zazen, and thus penetrating Zen is Zazen. I hope something I just said made some sense with our coming and going on Zoom. Anybody have any questions, complaints, or requests for your refunds?